The Sharpest College Football Podcast. This is our Week 8 preview. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Robert, a hearty konnichiwa from my body clock's a little off here. A konnichiwa from Japan. That's where I am. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I am actually doing this from the kitchen table of my in-laws on the outskirts of beautiful Tokyo. Robert, been a while since I've seen you. Congratulations on your Ducks' big win. Go ahead and gloat about that I'll give you a generous 10 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll see them in the conference championship game.
There we go. But just put them in the playoff final, right? Let's just do it right now.
Yeah.
All right. This is abbreviated since it's late and since I'm traveling. But just one thing real quick. The only thing looking back, I just want to say the playoff format has made this, and this is interesting because it's been a rough season for my team. We've been punched in the gut basically at the end of 3 games now. But this is still, notwithstanding, been an awesome season. I think just every week is so good, and I think a big part of it is the new playoff format.
Yeah, I think basically the entire SEC is up for grabs. With the exception of Texas, there's a bunch of SEC teams that can make the playoff. The Big Ten even more wide open in some cases, with the exception of the aforementioned Ducks and Ohio State. At this point, normally this Tennessee-Alabama game would be a pseudo-elimination game. It'd be like, all right, lose to this game, that's it. Season's done, pack it up. But not necessarily true this year. If you lose this game, go undefeated, you're in okay shape, right? So I think the 12-team format has made a lot of these games a lot more enjoyable. Also, Ohio State, right? I mean, if Oregon beat Ohio State, which is the inverse of what happened with them in Washington last year, losing to Washington in the regular season, going to the conference championship game, then losing to them again, that eliminated the Ducks. If Ohio State loses to Oregon twice, they are like 1,000% in the playoffs. Not even a question. They are 100% in the playoffs. They'll be hosted. That means, oh no, we lost to Oregon twice. Okay, let's host a team next week. That has made this a lot better of a format and means that these games are a lot more fun, and good teams are going to be eliminated a lot less frequently for just a bad game somewhere.
And if we had the old format, you know what we would be having right now? We would be having a bunch of bandwidth wasted on stupid crap like, let's weigh LSU losing to USC on a neutral field versus Ohio State losing to Oregon on a true road game. I hate that. I hate that. It's just, this is so much better. So somehow the sport did something right for once.
Yes.
All right. With that, let's go ahead and look back at our Week 7 results. Very good week. Dual model plays absolutely killed it. 8-3 on the week. A decent, fairly profitable, but not awesome week for the totals. But overall, 15-8 for the season. We are at a generous 40-25. That is beyond professional level, and it is early. But life to date, we are at a professional level, and it is now in the 3rd year of these plays. Congratulations to us. Looking back at our plays for last week, boy, that Mississippi one was tough to take. I can tell you that. Northwestern, we were just on the wrong side.
Yeah,
I'm interested. This is actually a little sneak preview to next week. We're going to do a new segment next week called The Sharpest Look Back, because I'm curious if I reproject after that game, what that game would look like, and you reproject again. I'm just curious if basically that was just a variance, or we just duffed it. Interesting. I'm really interested in that. Army is the machine. I keep on going. Nice little money line win that we both had on the pack. They made it interesting at the end there. Don't know if you saw the end of that one. And Iowa State just continuing to do Iowa State in somewhat obscurity. Good week, though. Anything strike you as from our plays last week?
Yeah, one thing. So, 2 things. The Mississippi loss, that one is so painful because they were up 7, and then LSU marched down the field, got the touchdown, and tied up the game, sent it to overtime. They don't get that. We cover the -3. We're very happy. We have an even better record. But again, you know what? On a week like that, don't quibble with that. Whatever. Sad, that one, but that's fine. One thing I do want to point out is the Texas versus Oklahoma game, and just how epically we nailed that one. Both of us, I think, both had something like Texas 30-something, Oklahoma 6. Or we actually both had Oklahoma 5. Oklahoma got 6 points, and Texas, I think, was 33 or 34. We both nailed that. I don't love saying, oh yeah, we're the best. Obviously we do tout a bit, but that, it's really impressive when you absolutely nail a game that well. That was actually crazy. So, yeah.
And you know what? We're not selling our picks, so we can brag all we want, right? My totals,
Sure, there we go. Yeah.
yeah, my totals pretty good. South Carolina, Alabama was a last minute loser. Not even close on Cincinnati, nor Louisville and Virginia. Arizona, BYU, yeah, sure, whatever. Notre Dame, Stanford, that was just a Notre Dame naming their own score. So whatever. We live, we learn, and I'll never argue with 7-5. If I do that every week, you'll make money at the end of the year for sure. All right, the glossary. If you are new, thank you very much for joining us the first time. Take a screen grab of this and save it in wherever you do all your college football research and numbers. Refer back to it through this and all the other episodes throughout the year. Here are the bet metrics through week 7. My top 20. I've got basically what's interesting. First of all, is I have no new teams in my top 20, which is interesting. Texas, Ohio State. I keep on saying this, but it hasn't regressed yet. Army number 3. My model loves, I don't know, you play good offense, you play good defense in dominating fashion, and you basically, I'd frame it this way. You've got them number 10 too, which is confirmation. I look at most of their games and I frame it this way, Robert. The rest of it's static. We differ a little on Oregon. But going back to the Army question, that's what I want to talk about in this slide. Most of the games I look at Army, I really don't see them. How do I say this? I don't see them handling their business in any less fashion than an Ohio State or an Oregon or a Texas would. They're winning by the same kind of scores that those consensus top teams would.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? I have now watched some Army football the last couple of weeks, and no, like honestly, the score line and the style of play feels a lot like Ohio State playing some of these teams, or an Oregon, or a Texas. Like it's domination, it's foot on the gas, we're not letting up. And I know it's so funny because I was watching the college football games yesterday and on ESPN, and they're like, oh, they're touting, they're like, oh, well, Army and Navy are ranked like 21 and 20. They're both in the 20s. This is the first time this has happened since the 60s. I'm like, both of them are way better than you think they are. Like
Mm-hmm.
Army is one of the top teams in the country, just straight up. Okay, we can. I guess we could. I have Navy up there a bit higher. I think you maybe have Navy outside the 25, but Army is a terrifying team at this point. Like a
Yeah.
truly terrifying team. They're just absolutely destroying people. And the reason they're not ranked top 10 just because they have just because they're called Army. If this was another team that was doing this, if this was a G5 team that was beating up those, sorry, P2 team that was beating up those same G5 teams with the same score, they'd be number 3. They would be number 3. That would be like, oh, okay, they have to go play another P2 team, but they would be your number 3rd rank. Like they would be a top 5 team easily. But because it's a G5 team doing it, they're like 20 something of. But again, the nice thing about the new 12 team model is it doesn't matter. Theoretically, they will have to make an assessment between Boise State and Army at the end of the year, theoretically assuming Boise State wins all their games. And then it's anybody's guess who they're going to pick there, and the winner of that game will get to go play a P2 team or whatever team, and they get to settle on the field. So I'm really excited for that, and I actually think Army is a lot better than the betting markets are giving credit for, and definitely the AP, 100% the AP. But I
Yeah.
think they're also better than the betting markets are too, and I think the betting markets have quite caught up as just how good this team is.
Yeah, you said it last week. They're still. I don't know if they're still caught up. I think I might have a plan on this week still. What's interesting is when my wife, who gets most of the stuff but not everything, as I don't have to explain to her the stupidity of a 14 playoff anymore. She doesn't really get the electoral college in the United States, but that's okay. Just a gauge for what she gets and she doesn't get. I can't wait to explain to her why I'm just perplexed and upset about Army Navy playing after Army Navy play in the playoff game or the conference title game, and how that affects or how it affects or doesn't affect the playoff, and we don't even know. We always find a way to do something stupid in this sport, don't we?
Yeah, I feel like for that one, they won't do it obviously, but I feel like what you should do is you should just say, okay, we're not playing this week. We're playing the next week. We're not. We're just gonna make next week the conference
Ooh.
championship game. We're not playing this week, and what we're instead gonna do is if Army wins this, if Army loses this, and then you could just have an optional one for your 12 seed. And that's the
Mm,
best way to do it. I feel like they should do that. They're not going to do it for some insane reason because they're going to make these two running teams play each other in back-to-back weeks and then have Army play another team the next week after. But that's how you should do it. You should just say, all right, if Army wins this, if Army loses this, that's your 12-team playoff.
I don't think the American Conference wants to forego any revenue from the broadcast of the title game. Remember that what's interesting too is I think that Army Navy game on December 9th or whatever it is, I think that's actually a non-conference game. Doesn't affect the conference standings or anything. And that's actually, I think that's still actually a CBS game rather than a part of the regular network deal, since it's a non-conference game, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm getting into the dumb parts of the sports now. We will move on. My top offenses for through week 7. New teams popping in here. Georgia, Texas State, not a surprise. Finally, USC, welcome late to the party, guys. You score 30 against a good Penn State defense, and you'll run up there. And hey, Texas A&M, not what I expected. You've got a good defense already. This is finally Mike Elko, full-blown proof of concept that we were expecting eventually. Sooner. This is sooner than I expected, though.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Texas A&M that high. They are suddenly being highly ranked and stuff, and I think you're setting up a kind of interesting end of the year battle there with Texas on Thanksgiving. That could be a very consequential game depending on what happens the rest of the way. I think Texas A&M only has one loss so far, right? I think they lost to
Just
Notre
to Notre
Dame,
Dame. Yep.
and that's it, right? Yeah. So
Yep.
they are theoretically undefeated in SEC play. This is the problem now because these conferences are so big. You're like, oh, this
Yeah.
other team is like has only one loss. Even in the Big Ten, it's oh yeah, Ohio State, Oregon are like oh they look good, but oh Nebraska only has one loss, and Indiana is also
And,
undefeated. So
yep.
there's a lot of oh this team can make it, but also there's these teams you forget about. So
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. Oops. Pardon me. Are some of the other defense or offensive metrics? New Mexico running in with the top running effort, although facing Air Force will do that to you. Jacksonville State. This is a team to watch out for now. They found a quarterback that can run. The defense seems functional at least. So that team actually, with all the issues we've seen with Liberty, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacksonville State actually threaten to take Conference USA this season. Receiving LSU, big game against. Interesting that they do it against a pretty good defense in Ole Miss. Now they're in the top 10 in Team Ryan. They jump in there. And Oklahoma State jumped into the top 10. They're not a good team. I think I want to say to praise Mike Gundy. He's had to reinvent this team on the fly like 3 times over the last 2 seasons, and he's done it again. He's now figured out, all right, we're not the running team with Oliver Gordon that we thought we were. Let's just have an explosive passing game with a pretty crummy quarterback in Bowman, too. Interesting stories that pop up on these two grids.
Yeah, it is Jacksonville State now finding themselves as a team there, and yeah, that one's going to be an interesting one to because they've been a pretty rough team the last little bit, but if they finally be able to find themselves, it might be bettable in some spots.
All right. All right, my top defense is James Madison going all the way up into the top 10 from out of nowhere there. Northern Illinois, they've been in and out. They're back in now, back at number 14. And ASU, they've been a solid under team for a while. I had them in the top 20 a while ago. They're out, now they're back in. So no surprises here, except for James Madison just vaulting from out of the top 20 all the way to number 9 with that big game against, I can't remember when. It was a good 12-hour flight ago. Can't remember, but they had a pretty big win, and I think we're on them too. Any surprises here on the defenses?
No, the Northern Illinois one is interesting though that they're that high, and also JMU. They played on Tuesday, or no, did they play? No, they didn't. They played earlier last week. They played last Thursday. They manhandled whoever they played, just absolutely destroyed them. They're a really good team. I think we all expect them to take a step back after losing Signetti, but they have not really. They are still a terrifying team that is just really good at football. That's what we like to see when we bet on this stuff.
Yeah, I will say, as someone that's got a decent stake on Texas State to take the Sun Belt, GMU is concerning me a bit right now. All right, a little deeper dive on some of the defensive metrics right here. There is the just mentioned James Madison, number 8 in pass defense. And here we go. Army, the complete package, number 10 in pass defense. And hey, by the way, Army, number 4 in run defense. Interesting, too. One of the threats I see now to Iowa State, Kansas State's had a good offense for a few weeks now by the metrics. Now we actually have a good run defense too. This is rounding into shape, kind of your typical Chris Kleiman thing. Hey, Boise State found a way to play some defense. Still sucks against the pass, but very good against the run now. Although playing whoever they just beat, they manhandled some poor team. Oh, Hawaii, who doesn't even run the ball. So that'll skew your stats a little bit. And Northwestern did a number on Maryland. Congratulations to them. Top 10 in run defenses. What sticks out to you in these?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Boise State's high up there on defensive run. I think you to beat them, you have to pass against them, and I think no one's really been able to test them so far in the past. So watch out for when that happens. Kansas State is pretty good at the run defense as well, and Northwestern, maybe they got a little bit overlooked there. But Washington having a pretty good defensive apex is there. But shout out to Army though. Just I think are they the only team on both of these lists? I think so, right?
It
Yeah.
looks like it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. And
Unless
they
we're,
haven't really
we're
had
blind, but
a
no,
tough,
it's crazy how good this Army team is.
yeah. They haven't had a tough opponent, but neither had Ohio State before they played Oregon. And Ohio State was not on both of these. Pretty interesting reference point there. All
Mm-hmm.
right, let's get to our previews. The big games first. Georgia at Texas. Interesting matchup here. Georgia's apex a little higher than what I had thought. Texas's apex, even with Arch Manning stepping in, has not been a problem. Texas just a better running team. And if you look basically at the run defense too, you just got Texas as a more physical team than Georgia, which is not something I really would have expected to say. Georgia's just been a disappointment this season, just to be honest. Georgia actually with a below average pass defense. Texas with one of the top pass defenses in all of FBS. Texas the lead on both sides of the ball here. The weakness here, and this is interesting, is the defense for a Kirby team. I've got Texas by 20. You've got them by 7. I've got the margin, but you don't have enough for a dual model play. But my belief is completely lined up with my model. This is not a dual model play, but I fully expect this to be Texas by at least 2 scores. What about you?
Yeah, I thought seeing this, I thought I'd be on Georgia initially. Just I
Yeah.
saw the line, I'm like, oh Georgia, but then I saw the model, and the model's like, nope, the model actually has some value on Texas compared to the betting markets. It's interesting because I actually pre-bet Georgia at the beginning of the year on this. I think I'm sitting on a Georgia -2.5 or -1.5 versus Texas spread. I'm sitting on. So it's crazy how good this Texas team seems. To be fair, Oklahoma definitely not the greatest team, and Oklahoma was able to stop them to some extent. The 30 some odd points is probably a tad inflated because Oklahoma could do nothing on offense. So if you're able to get to a kind of a more neutral offense, maybe you're able to hold them to 20s. But Oklahoma's defense is really good. I think they might actually have a better defense than Georgia. And I just don't
Mm-hmm.
know if Georgia has the firepower to be able to contend with this Texas defense because this Texas defense is also really good too. So this could actually be a very interesting game. I'd favor Texas in it, but I agree with the no bet. I feel like if Texas were to get out there and score early, maybe you do this. But I'm fair there. I feel like this is the best coach Steve Sarkisian will have faced off against since playing off against Saban in the college. No, he didn't play Saban in the college football playoff. He played DeBoer in the college football
Yep.
playoff with Washington. So this is the best coach he's played against since that game. I'm not the biggest fan of the Oklahoma coach, so I think there's some stuff there. I don't know. I'm not. I think Texas wins this game, but I'm not confident enough to bet that if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying, but you're basically saying wait until Texas plays Ohio State or Oregon, those kind of teams. You haven't really seen those kind of matchups yet. All right. The other really big game of the week, Alabama, and some of these lines might have moved. I haven't been monitoring them from Tokyo here, but Alabama giving 2.5 at Tennessee. This makes me, bless you, this makes me a little nervous. You've got a really
Thank you.
explosive offense here. I think Jalen Milroe like top 3 in Apex. Tennessee's not the offensive team that everybody thinks here, just a little bit above average. But you've got an explosive offense here, yet it's Tennessee's elite defense that makes this a possible underplay. You do have 2 really good run defenses. Tennessee's just about as good as it gets, 2 very good passing defenses as well. I've got Tennessee by a point here. You've got Alabama by a touchdown, but we both have this pretty safely under the total of 55.5. Dual model has this as an underplay. I guess if you force me to make the case why, I guess I can say I do like the ability of Tennessee's defense, which is really good, to eventually slow down Milrow for maybe two quarters, question mark. Like this, little concerned about what Alabama can do, but still full unit play on this on the under here.
I'll give some updates. In Texas, Georgia, that's now up to Texas -5. Still not a play for me, but still a play on your model on that. Yeah. The total in this game is actually, so this is now Alabama -3, and the total has ticked up to 56. 56
Wow.
even. So basically unchanged. So it's not like there's a lot of underplay on this. And I actually really do the under in this game. Alabama and South Carolina, I think, went under this number last week, I think. I'm fairly
Barely
sure.
over.
And the thing was, oh, barely over this number. Okay. But again, it was, I think there was a late, oh, that's right. Yes, because South Carolina scored and then they missed the 2-point conversion. So I think people are like, you made the point that, oh, I think Tennessee can shut down this Alabama offense. South Carolina did for most of that game. There was parts of that game where they were actually winning. Alabama's offense did not look super unbeatable. And it's, again, we said the same thing. We said that last week, where it's like, hey, this team, DeBoer, after beating Oregon last year with Washington, they took a couple weeks off there, and it didn't catch up to them because they were playing teams that didn't even make bowl games. But now you're playing. You got caught by Vanderbilt. You almost got caught there by South Carolina. That was a 21.5. People looking at the spread will think, oh yeah, Bama scraped it out, but that was a 21.5 point spread. There is no way you can look at that game as anything other than an absolute failure, right? Okay, yeah, they won, but that's the line there. So I think honestly, on some level, I think what you have to do is you have to just say, I think this game should be actually pretty close. Although my model does have Alabama, if I had to bet this, I bet Tennessee, but I actually really do the under here. I really like the under.
Yeah, Tennessee has had this is I can see just some of the strategy flowing towards the under two in that Tennessee has had a hard time blocking for Nico, and Heupel will tends to run more than you might expect. You've got a good pass defense here with Alabama, and that could just limit Tennessee's offensive game plan more than we expect. And I think that could really drive this under as well, aside from just the talent of both defenses here, just the matchup of schemes, if you will. All right, South Carolina and Oklahoma. This line has moved to, I know this, I've had an eye on it here overseas. So this says it's a dual model play on two aspects. I just have it as one now because I know this is moved to Oklahoma -1.5. So South Carolina is not a play on the side, but definitely a play on the under. I've got this basically going a total at 29. You have it at 33. Total is at 40.5. Oklahoma has struggled on offense.
That's okay.
You might think that they get a break this week, but I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. South Carolina's got a really elite defense, being reflected in the total of 40.5. But I just don't see a new quarterback who I like long term in Hawkins. I don't think this is a spot where he gets well and really takes a step forward. You've got a South Carolina offense that kind of stinks against a good, not great Oklahoma defense, but I do also like the ability of Venables to scheme against I don't want to say a limited quarterback, but a shaky passing quarterback who's super athletic. I think a guy like Venables is going to be better than your average coach is scheming up against that. Also, aside from just the specifics in Oklahoma, I'm seeing articles about, yeah, Seth Luttrell's not really working out and people are dissatisfied with him as offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. This is like a Big Ten West, a little slice of the Big Ten West being dropped into the SEC. Even though it's a low, very low number for the SEC, I'm still very comfortable going under here.
Yeah, I actually. Oh, okay. I actually do South Carolina here. I was able to grab South Carolina at some +3, and I think some nice juicy +125 money line. So I got that. The under here is not bad, but the line there is now 41. It's about right. It's a little too close to comfort for me, but I'll think about it though. But yeah, no, I do like it. I actually think it makes a lot of sense having South Carolina as the better team. And I think that they could definitely win this game. And yeah, you know what? Now in South Oklahoma's defense is good, and South Carolina's defense is also really good. maybe this is an underplay. Maybe the 41 is, maybe they cashed the under this week for us rather than last week against Bama. But yeah, maybe.
There is no maybe. It's a dual model play. You either play it or you don't, buddy. You're in. I'll speak on your
All
behalf.
right. All right. Dual model. We're doing it.
All right. And in total transparency, we're given all the dual model plays, and this was one. Not going to run through it because it was a loss. Just a little bit of a look back here. Interesting that Kennesaw State was able to slow down Middle Tennessee's good passing defense or passing game, especially for a Conference USA team, enough to cover. Of course, in weird and stupid Kennesaw State fashion, they cover on virtue of a safety early in the game, and that's the difference. Kennesaw State. Thank you very much. Anything on this one, Robert?
No, it was just a very, like, there was Middle Tennessee State had a chance had some chances to score late to cover all the numbers, and they just didn't, and that made me a little sad. But I had a good night the rest of the night, so that was okay. What I actually was able to do though is, this opened at 10. I initially bet it at negative 9.5, and then when I found out it was a dual model play, I did bet it at 8.5, so I drew even on that.
Oh,
The 8.5 cashed, but the 9.5 didn't. So it was that weird 14-5 line there for the winning by 9. I was not burned, but not the happiest, but it was fine.
14-5. Awesome. All right. Duke against Florida State. This is interesting. And I think that this is really going to be a function of Duke. We both have covering here. I've got it barely now. I think this is just a rounding thing, even though it's 10. I think I've got this actual closer to 7.5 or 10.5 when you do this here. So barely a dual model play here. Better at 3 than 3.5. I think this is really just a matter of you've got a really good defense. Credit to Manny Diaz. First year, did not see this coming at all. Against now you've got Brock Glenn. I don't think DJU is coming back. And just this is a team that cannot run the ball at all in Florida State. And you've got a decent, not great, but okay run defense. But really, any quarterback against this is going to struggle, especially as poor as the quarterback play has been at Florida State. The question is going to be the Duke offense, but they should have a lot of opportunities. Looks like a lot of 3-and-outs with this horrible offense here that Florida State has. So barely a dual model play. Better for you if you're giving 3 than 3.5 on Duke. You've got this in a Duke runaway.
Yeah, I do have Duke running away with this. I think I like, Duke is clearly the better team, and they were 3.5. I grabbed some 3.5. I think it's come down now a little bit. I think this game is earlier in the day, right? I'm just checking. Oh no, it's Friday. It's a Friday game. Yeah, this is actually, this come back down to 3. But in my opinion, Duke's just a far better team than Florida State. I will gladly take Duke any way, not even close. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't see anything from Brock Glenn so far to think that he's going to make a difference in this one. Oklahoma State at BYU. I love this one. I think the market is again, all praise to Mike Gundy. And basically, you can see right here, he's made his team an explosive passing game, even though the quarterback play stinks, which is interesting for a Mike Gundy team. But he's found a way to get something out of nothing. The running game, this is just amazing. All the hopes we had for Alva Gordon coming into the season, just boy, have gone by the wayside. But you've got a really bad Oklahoma State defense too. I thought they might improve a little bit under the new defensive coordinator, year 2 under him, but they've not. BYU offense is almost functional. Good running game, or not that good of a okay running game, almost explosive, but not really, but just a stingy defense. And I think that this is really going to basically keep Oklahoma State down. I've got BYU by 30. You've got them by 32. I love this play. The market, I couldn't believe this line when I saw it, but then the market is so slow to really realize just how bad Oklahoma State is. And they're just overlooking, because this is not new news, but BYU is a very tough place to play. A lot of things I think the market is just flat out missing or just mispricing or whatever on this one. So I love BYU in this spot.
Yeah, this line has actually exploded up to BYU minus 9.5 now. I think
Really?
I got some 8.5, but yeah, this line has BYU. Yeah, this line has just exploded. But again, we still have it as a play at 9.5, right? That's
Yeah.
not even a question. Even though it's moved almost a full score, we still like BYU here. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Hey, it's the Army podcast featuring the sharpest. What can we say about Army? This is an Army love fest. Don't know what to say other than just East Carolina again struggling on offense. You know, the quarterback position, Jake Garcia, is just, he loves to give the ball to the other team. And guess what? Army will gladly take it. That is a horrible matchup. And guess what? This is a stingy run defense that's going to basically force your hand, Jake Garcia. Army will basically be up by 2 scores, probably by late first half. And then you're looking at trusting this guy here. And that's going to result in this basically 8.4 negative offensive rating for East Carolina really manifesting itself. I don't have this as close. I have Army by 30. One of the favorite things for me to do is just look how your model predicts Army scores. They're just comedic. You've got them by 48. So dual model play on the United States Military Academy.
Yeah, I this line just seems wrong. I don't understand how else you could characterize this line other than wrong. There is no feasible way in which you can say Army should easily be 3-score favorites here. It's at Army. And I think this is one of the reasons why we did so well with Air Force last year until they decided to just stop playing football for some reason. Teams like this are constructed to absolutely demolish teams that are worse than them, right? And it's more so even than an Oregon and an Ohio State because those rely a lot on a passing attack. But this team is designed to run the ball, and running the ball is consistent, right? Passing the ball obviously pretty consistent as well. You got a guy open, you throw it to him. That's pretty consistent, but it's not as consistent as just being bigger and stronger than the other guy. And I think when you go down a tier, if your guys are just bigger and stronger than the rest of the guys in your league, you can just start destroying people. And the question is how big, like we talked about it earlier, how big and strong are those guys? I think they're elite. I think they're competitive with the top echelons of the sport here. And if that's the case, then they should be able to easily handle this East Carolina team that's a 3-3 East Carolina team. That's the thing. And it's at home. Like again, Army is in it's this is West Point, right? This is New York. That's a non insignificant amount of travel for them. Yeah, give me Army here. I again we rode that Air Force train quite a while last year until it completely derailed. But yeah, I think we might be doing that again this year.
Yeah. Agree. All right, Miami at Louisville. Not my favorite play. I love unders a lot more than overs, but you do have two elite offenses here. You might remember, I think last week I actually had Louisville as a top rated offense in all of FBS, and now you've got Miami actually ahead of them. You've got a pretty average Louisville defense here as well, which should basically help matters too. You've got exceptional quarterback play from Cam Ward. Plus, you've got the factor too that we've talked about. Cam Ward is very capable of just giving up a gift pick six just by throwing the ball just over his head as he's running away from somebody. Just a lot of opportunities for points here. Again, over's not my favorite play, but I've got the total at 73. You've actually got higher than me. A lot of margin with two elite offenses, so this is a dual model play on the over in this one.
Yeah, I do the over here. The spread is not 16.5. It's Miami, Florida
Yep,
-5.
I screwed that
Or
up.
it's
Pardon
Louisville
me.
+5. So that's off. That's okay. That we're not talking about. Yeah, we're not talking about the spread. That's okay. But no, yeah, I love the over here. Both of these are pretty powerful offenses. My guess is that Louisville will try to will be up late, and Miami's going to have to score a bunch of points to try to cover, and that's a perfect recipe for an over 61.5. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the yen is very weak against the dollar. So once you translate that point spread overseas here, it actually is Louisville by 16 and a half. Little known fact that one of those currency translation things. All right. Next,
Yes.
we we spoke about Northern Illinois and their defense here. You've got a good MAC defense here in Toledo, and you've got basically an elite national defense here in Northern Illinois. Having two really good defensive efforts against Power Five teams, including one against Notre Dame that's just aging better and better as Notre Dame is finding their wheels on offense now. Northern Illinois, I've bemoaned the fact of just how their passing game has just stunk. You might remember about 4 weeks ago, their quarterback was in the top 10 and he somehow within 2 weeks made it all the way to the bum list. And last week I mentioned they've just given up on the run game. I think they passed all of 10 times in that game. This in Northern Illinois, My numbers don't really account for pace, but so there's probably more margin here that they really take the air out of the ball. They use a lot of clock. Toledo's found themselves a quarterback that's actually, I think, maybe a little better than Daquan Finn. So a lot of factors here that point to and under here. I've got the total at 33. You've got 25, which I could see. I could see yours being more likely than mine. I don't know if Northern only gets to 3 scores here, but a lot of margin here under the total of 43. Dual model play under here.
Yeah, I fun story about last week. So Toledo was playing Buffalo. They were like 10.5 point favorites. Basically, I saw from the books that like 75-ish% of the money was on Toledo. I'm like, that seems like a lot of money to be confident in one MAC team over another. And the book said they needed Buffalo, so I said, all right, go bet Buffalo plus 10.5 money line. That was very easy win. But so I basically the point of that story is that I actually watched a lot of that game, and both of those teams are pretty horrible at offense, and Northern Illinois also pretty horrible at offense. So I actually absolutely love this under. I think Toledo is obviously challenged offensively, and I think Northern Illinois also as well. So I think we'll see. I think we could potentially see a very low scoring game, and I do the under here.
Yep. All right. Next game here. Charlotte at Navy. Again, I think the market is just slow to react here. You've got an elite Navy offense, and I think people are just thinking when you think of Navy, oh, they take the air out of the ball. They score pretty quickly. And I don't know if people aren't understanding just how crazy deadly Navy is when the few times they throw the ball. This is a crazy number. You've got Navy as with the more explosive passing game in this game, and they run for a lot per rush. This isn't just like 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, a first down every 2 minutes. They with rapidity run the score up, and you've got a really an improving but still bad Charlotte defense here as well. Total is 55 and a half. I've got this going well over that. I've got a total of 76. You have a total of 78. I love this over. This is I As I said, I usually don't like overs so much, but this is one I'm definitely comfortable with.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think Army and Navy have both done something where I think they've realized that people always, when defending the triple option, would just stack the box, and they've realized, oh, we can just pass against that, and then we score a touchdown. And I think it's weird that it's taken them this long to realize that. But I think they have, and I think that also both of them are not horrible on defense, not great on defense. I think they've realized that their strength is scoring points. I think they're better on generally the service academy schools are better on offense than on defense. So I think that in that way, I think they've just realized, hey, if we score 50, we win the game most of the time. So I think they're just like, let's just score 50. And if the opponent scores 30, that's fine. And we still win. So I think that's where the difference comes in. And that's why we're seeing Army and Navy overs are doing quite well this year so far. So
Yeah.
I like the over here as well.
Let me see. All right. James Madison at Georgia Southern. Like this one as well. We just talked earlier about just the frisky James Madison defense. You might recall too that I we didn't update it this week, didn't have time, but they basically have essentially a top 10 quarterback and Alonzo Barnett the third. That's a tough rounded team. You can see you've got a great apex here, 141, and they can run the ball too. There's just an explosive and a good defense against the pass and the run. There is a lot to like here. You've also got a very physical team here. If you look in basically the difference in GGAB offense to defense for James Madison versus a typical not physical, I don't know, how do I say it nicely? Just not a tough team, typical of Clay Helton, now that we're well into the Clay Helton era here. I've got James Madison by 23. You've got him by 39. This line does not make sense at all. This is almost the stinks line, but I'm happy to take this. I wouldn't be surprised if you give me an update and this has moved to over 10. Love the Dukes here. Has this line moved since I've gotten 8.5?
It's 9.5 now, but that doesn't change my feelings on this game at all.
North Texas at Memphis. Really interesting. And I think that broken record here. The market is slow to Memphis is not nearly as good as people thought coming into the season. I think that there's a realization that they're not like one of the top three American teams or P5 teams. I wouldn't put in the top three of the American right now. I said coming into the season, Seth Hennigan is a good but not great quarterback, and he's not even been good. Their defense has been an issue, but their offense is even worse now. It's just not working. North Texas, we've been on them a couple times, actually before this dual model. Personally, Buck's brain, not Buck's model. I split on them. They're still good on offense, both running and passing. This is you got this explosive metric here in the Ryan per game. That is a tough one to deal with. They've I'm going to say using the tense that I talk about in the USC defense. They are fixing their defense right now. It's not fixed, but it's better than it was before. This number was basically in negative double digits earlier in the season. I think you're seeing a better version of post Seth Luttrell North Texas. Memphis giving 10 is a joke to me. I've got this a tie. You've got North Texas by 10. So this is an easy dual model play. I love this one, and I wouldn't be surprised if this line has moved down maybe to 8 or so by now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people are like, "Oh, Memphis is a good team. They beat Florida State, but like they were underdogs in that and they arguably should have beaten Florida State by more than they actually beat them." I think a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, "Oh, they beat them, but they probably should have beaten them by more based on how poor Florida State's looked the last couple of weeks." So, one thing about North Texas is that they did get absolutely destroyed by Texas Tech, but I feel like that was one of those games that's just like every bad thing happened in that game, and you just can't, you just win you want back, but you can't get it back. So I do like North Texas here. I think I like the fact that we both like North Texas here, so I'm playing this one pretty confidently. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Next game, UNLV giving 7.5 at Oregon State. This was, I think I got this open at 6.5, and I think I got that number. Not sure. But I will tell you this. These numbers on the UNLV side are actually better than it appears here because you've got a lot of Matthew Sluka, who was not a very good passer of the ball. Apologies because this is an abbreviated issue. We didn't do a top 10 Apex player, but Haj Malik Williams is actually number 3 in the country now in Apex. And you had, like I said, the defense has come on in year 2 of Barry Odom once he had more of his guys through the portal. You've got a fully formed P5 monster here in UNLV. And as somebody who's backing Boise over 9.5 season wins, I'm counting this when they play UNLV. I'm just counting that mentally as a loss. UNLV is just better than Boise. Oregon State doesn't have much going for it. If any, clearly their defense is a problem. It stinks. I don't know if their offense is even this good as basically a -3 power rating. Their quarterback is not good. This 62 Apex right here is going to suffer against a Barry Odom year 2 defense here. I have this is not even close. I have UNLV by 24. You have them by 34. Full unit plus whatever you want on this. This is one of the best plays by far of this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is down to a 7. I think
Oh,
it was a 6.5 at some places, but it's 7. I think it's come down to a 7 now. But yeah, I still love it at 7. I think this is just the fact that Oregon State was a Pac-12 school, and I still think there's that name in there. I don't think people have quite caught on to UNLV, even though UNLV did lose the other week. I think they are just the better team.
all right. So that's it for the dual model plays. Here are my total plays. This is fascinating. So I've got 5, obviously 5 of mine are dual model plays. We had 5 totals, 3 unders, 2 overs. Then I've got 4 here that basically are not dual model plays, and we're not even in neutral territory. You are severely on the other side of most of these, all these numbers here. What are our differences here? 14, 16, 14, and 20. I've got 2 unders and 2 overs. Of these, I love this under. I think BYU is going to absolutely stifle a bad Oklahoma State offense. BYU struggles on offense as well. I think that JMU will probably shut out. If not, definitely keep Georgia Southern in single digits. So I love that under. LSU, Arkansas, the numbers make sense. I've given up on either. They're trying to figure out game to game what those teams are going to do since they're all over the place. Kansas State, they're just becoming an over team. Although with that good run defense that we talked about earlier, I'm a little less excited about this one. So I think that was my smallest total play of all of these. Any impressions on these?
No, I like the ones we agree on. The other ones are a bit weird. LSU at Arkansas, I take the over in that one. I don't know why my model is so low on them. Kansas State at West Virginia, yeah, that could be pretty high scoring. Yeah, I don't know why I guess my model just has GMU just absolutely blowing out Georgia Southern, so that's why it has the total up so high at 65. But yeah, if JMU just smothers the ball and just ends the game, I think that could go under as well. So yeah.
Yep. So, nope, we're not done with that. So that is it. Thank you all for your patience in a delayed week 8 preview. We appreciate it. If you are new, thank you so much. Welcome. We promise it'll be better next week. And if you're returning, we really appreciate it. Our number of views and listens has just exploded versus last year. So thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of you came from Reed Wallach's podcast. Shout out to my guy Reed, the best podcast besides ours. Thank you so much, Robert. Good luck this week. I will see you in more normal settings in just a few days from now.
Yes. All right. See you then.
Thank you all.